Me too.
All right, to get started. Thanks for coming. Welcome all to our 19th meeting of our 10-year master plan update committee. I would like to take the time to commend our land use presenters, our concerned citizens, staff, and the members of this committee on how well we have all worked together to further develop a robust plan that considers the needs, wants, and expectations of all Wildwood stakeholders. Our last meeting was a shining example of that collaboration, and we should all be proud of the results. Thank you all again for your participation and input. Joe, is the mayor available? Okay. Melanie, would you please call roll, please?
As stated, Mayor Garitano is not here. Chair Roughton,
Here.
Vice Chair Loyal, Member Avery,
Present.
here via Zoom, Member Baker, Member Beatty, Member Boomer Schlegel, Member Boren, Member Clark, Member Member Clayton, Member Coleman,
Here.
Member Depler,
Here.
Member Helfrey,
Here.
Member Homan,
Present.
also on Zoom, Member Rubus,
Here.
Member Jackson,
Here.
Member Cohn, Councilmember McCutcheon. Oh, I guess Member Cutcheon. Member Metz,
Here.
Member Pick,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Member Wren,
Here.
Member Shaken. And we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, regarding minutes from last time, I think we've got a couple minor changes, but we need to discuss and finalize. The first one would be in regard to the Valley Road project. We talked about three specific points. The first one was land use category, which remains unchanged. The second was using the PRD where applicable. And then lastly, entrance to that particular property be limited to Valley Road. The first two were covered in the minutes and in the report out. The last one regarding the limited access through Valley Road to the property was not. I'd like to propose a motion that we include that in the minutes as well as the report out.
I'll second that motion.
Teresa?
Yes, the PRD, to make sure that it is in that area it's memorialized, maybe that in the note as well, if that's appropriate.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Melanie, voice vote. Yes.
Member Avery?
That's fine. I'm fine with it. Sorry. My kids were yelling in the background.
I'm sorry, what do we? Oh, okay, I thought we were. Yes.
Member Cole? Yeah. Beckler?
Yes.
Member Helfrey?
Yes.
Member Homan?
Yes.
Member Homan?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Member Rubus?
Yes.
Member Jackson?
Yes.
Member Metz?
Yes.
Member
Yes.
Pick? Perfect.
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo?
Yes.
Member Wren?
Yes.
Member Shaken?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Passes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Jill, regarding the Pasiglia presentation, if we could please, like the last presentations, when you are done with your part, we would like them to speak before we vote.
Certainly, sir.
Thank-
And regarding the minutes, our apologies for missing those couple of items. We'll certainly strengthen the discussion relating to the overlay district and add the Valley Road access per your motion and action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rambo, that's a very good question and probably a question better posed to Mayor Garitano. But in the case of Planning and Zoning Commission member Cohn, when he resigned from the commission at the beginning of 2026, he stayed on to serve as part of the master plan group. So if past practice is any indicator, we would welcome Ms. McCutcheon's participation to the very end. She had a family commitment tonight and contacted the department right around 6 o'clock just to remind us that she wouldn't be available.
Travis, could you help with Joe's mic at all?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the group, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your attendance tonight. Certainly achieving the quorum is a goal of the department and this group. And tonight you've smashed through that number 12. So thank you very much. We do appreciate it. As the chair mentioned in his opening remarks, this is our 19th meeting. Certainly that's a milestone for many of you as well as us. And so again, just want to extend the department's appreciation for your persistence and tenacity. Robin, Travis, Melanie, and I can't do this without all of you. So you're an integral part of making this city work and continue forward to be a great place to live, play, and work. Tonight, under the miscellaneous item, there is a proposed schedule. And so I think that schedule shows that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So hopefully we'll get there as quickly as we can, and we can kind of put this process to rest and have the plan in place for the next 10 years to make Wildwood the place we all want it to be. As always, we have drinks and snacks at the back of the room. There's coffee, water, soda, cookies, and fruit. So I want to thank Melanie, Dawn, and the others for setting up and trying to make the place as hospitable as a city hall council chambers can be. So thank you. And then one last note, we didn't get a chance last night to acknowledge Miss Boomer Schlegel, but she received a proclamation from our mayor and city council. So congratulations again. Mr. Chair and members of the group, as you know, we spent much of our last meeting at the end of April talking about 4 properties. The 4 properties were dispersed around the city in many ways, and the property owners had requested consideration of a possible land use change relative to the conceptual land use categories and the associated map. As we went through them, each of them were discussed. The property owners are the representatives presented relative to their requested changes. And as we reached those conclusions, the motions were made. Tonight, there is a summary of the 4 properties, and I just want to briefly go through those summaries. In terms of Site A, which is the properties, relatively speaking, in the Wildwood portion of Chesterfield Valley, the group recommended by a unanimous vote to retain the industrial designation under the master plan, but to allow downtown district uses as part of potential development. The question that the group asked at the conclusion of that action is to make sure that they understood what downtown district uses entailed and included. And so as part of the summary tonight, you now have that list of uses, 35 in total, that represent what the downtown district here in Town Center could accommodate, not necessarily just by right, but as part of a zoning process that would go through our Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. A key component of the action of the group was that no residential be allowed within that portion of the industrial area. And as you can see from the list of uses, there are no residential activities as part of those that could be considered. If there are any questions regarding the list of uses, many of which may not be practical in the area, but certainly some that could complement what the development pattern is at this time, and certainly offer some options for the owners of the property for the future. That's Site A. Site B is the Valley Road property. As you know, there was a bit of a joke that 3 strikes are out. And so from the Department of Planning's perspective, we've endorsed potential change here 3 times. And in each time, the volunteer group has said, no, let's stay the course. And the course is the property, the 120 plus acres, retain its non-urban residential area designation. And that was a unanimous vote again by the group. As part of that, and now reflected in the amended minutes, the discussion of the planned residential development overlay district was extensive, and the rationales for that extensive discussion was the fact that the overlay district will allow for more tree preservation, less disturbance of the site itself, protection of the waterways, and in many ways, a less expensive development for the developer, meaning less miles of streets or feet of streets, less infrastructure installations, et cetera, et cetera. And so again, a key component. And then finally, as part of the amended minutes tonight, the motion now addresses that access to that 120 acres be only via Valley Road. That means the two existing stub streets in the Brentmore Place subdivision will stay stub streets and not be extended to future development. Site B. Site C was a property that is located on the southeast corner of Route BA and Route 109. For many, many years, it has been a plant nursery with greenhouses with limited wholesale sales. The broker representing, I believe, the owner requested via letter that it be changed to industrial to allow for a greater utilization. Its current designation is non-urban residential area. The non-urban residential area defers to the non-urban resident district zoning category and the permitted uses there. Permitted uses include plant nurseries with greenhouses and limited wholesale sales. The group said no change. And the rationale again was that it is an area where new residential growth continues to occur. And that residential growth is on large lots, new homes. And so from the perspective of this group, changing that character would be a disservice to those that have invested in the area for residential purposes. Site C. Site D was Kelp Contracting. Matthew Kelp provided the presentation at the last meeting. Tom Kelp was here, and the group discussed the nature of the current use, legal but non-conforming, under the provision of a Board of Adjustment variance granted many, many years ago. The group agreed that this is a generational business, that the Kelps will continue to operate it through now Matthew and others. And so from the group's perspective, the change would be not the land use category. It would stay non-urban residential area, but that we would add industrial uses. And as part of that description in the updated materials, the department provided you the list of permitted industrial uses that would be appropriate for consideration on this particular property and the one immediately to the north. That list of uses contains 12 options, and those options again would be considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission and then City Council before being authorized to occur on that property or the adjoining property to the north. That was a unanimous vote as well. So those are the 4 actions that were taken by the group at our last meeting. The department would like to think that it captured the intent and the discussion as best as it could in given amount of space to write. So certainly, as we know, we're going to strengthen the discussion in the minutes relative to the memorialization of the PRD, and we'll add the Valley Road access allowance and none other. But for the most part, we're presenting these 4 summaries for consideration and any changes by the group tonight. Thank you.
Are you looking for a motion?
Yes, I would appreciate it, an action on the summaries.
So first of all, I want to say thank you very much for breaking down the uses in the final category. That clarification for everything helped me tremendously. I'm sure it helped other people as well. So thank you for that. And second of all, I would make a motion that we can approve those things and continue on. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, ma'am.
That's my motion, that we approve those as they are. And
Approve those with the addition to the minutes and the report on our Valley Road with those.
yes, but you already covered that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're just kind of capturing it now into this document as well.
Yes. Okay. So if you could please add those into that would be my motion. Thank you.
All in favor?
Oh.
Question?
Looking at the uses that are listed, I started thinking about where that's at. Are some of those things gonna cause us any problems down the road in the future with like the filling station and a hospital or the research laboratories, something that because of the location next to the river?
Well, certainly, as you know, it's protected floodplain. So under the current zoning map, it's shown as M3, not FP M3 floodplain industrial. So from that perspective, certainly the caution I think the group took was residential in a protected floodplain. It's one thing to be uprooted, so to speak, from your business environment. It's another not to have a place to call home or go back to home after a flood event. So we've removed the residential. Some of these uses certainly, I think, are highly improbable, in terms of happening at this location, the Wildwood portion of the valley. Certainly hospitals are based upon certificate of need. Is there a need in this area? I don't know. Barnes Jewish Christian has a facility across the river near Highway 94 that could serve this population easily. There's St. Luke's. So like I say, some of these certainly are improbable. The department, though, didn't feel it was appropriate for it to start lining them out and saying, we don't think this works here. We don't think this works here. This may work here better. I think ultimately that's a decision for the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council based upon your direction via the master plan update.
If I may respond to that, I think there's a few of them that maybe environmentally would need to be off the list because not all of us are going to be here 10 years. Just to think about the motor oils, the lubricants and things that could get into the groundwater and into the river. We had that discussion about the research lab that wanted to go in over in the old bars and how much controversy there was with that. Just not knowing what a research lab might bring and being that close to the water source. I just was a little concerned. I don't know how close you can be without causing water contamination, air pollution from the carbons and the nitrogen.
Again, I appreciate the context, but first and foremost, underground storage tanks won't work in the valley, period. That's why it's all surface stormwater management, the riprap, the basins, everything is at surface or near surface because of the water table. So from that perspective, I think, again, is it a viable use? Not to the Department of Planning? Is it something that someone might apply for? Possibly. In terms of the water source, certainly that's a consideration. And in the case of Far Greenhouse and the technology or the biotechnology company, the concern there is that residential was on all four sides. And that residential pattern depended on the aquifer for potable water. Here, it's Missouri American. There is no well per se that would be accommodated to a development of any of these. It's just it's not practical. And that's part of the reason that portion of the valley hasn't developed. Many of the necessary utilities, including potable water, aren't readily available. They're there, but not readily available. So certainly, if over the course of between now and the next meeting, collectively, there are some suggested changes to the list, deletions, additions, we can certainly discuss those at that time. But again, the department's opinion was the commission and the council will ultimately make the best determinations under the current review processes. You're welcome.
Every opportunity is always going to be looked at in case by case basis. Every time the environmental concerns are going to be looked at in depth. I don't necessarily know how we can just magically come up with 5 things that aren't appropriate because we don't know how those 5 things are going to be implemented. So if staff can guarantee that those concerns are going to be taken care of or at least looked at and measured, I don't see a problem.
Well, certainly the department would never guarantee success either one way or the other. 100% perfection is not what we achieve on any basis. I wouldn't say necessarily the other 3 planners in the room, but not me. However, as part of this process, we have the advantage this update versus the other 2 in 2005 and 2015. We have it all on video, and we have a record now. So if there are concerns about a filling station or a vehicle service or repair and the potential contamination of the groundwater via their activities, we have it on video. We can basically enunciate that at a meeting. And at the meeting, then the commission and council can say, no, this master plan group identified that and said it's a problem. We concur or we don't concur, but if we don't concur, how do you control it? How do you guarantee? And I think the council and commission are in a better position to guarantee it as the decision makers versus us.
So your recommendation was 1, either accept it or we wait a week and think about it? Is that where you are?
Well, I'd love to meet with you all in a week, but I think we've got a few, I think it's a few weeks, but yeah, but if you're willing. But no, if you know, the motion on the floor is to accept them as presented. The motion could be amended to pull out side A and have the opportunity to review the list of uses.
I think that, am I understanding that what you're asking is if we can itemize what can go in as zoning? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're asking, Ms. Clark?
Yeah, just like we're doing for the industrial, and the other one, where
But
we've got listed certain things that they can come in with that are not all the industrial items. This, at this area, the only reason I'm asking this is because of it says filling station, it says service center for vehicles. And even if it's not the potable water, those organic, those VOCs are there. They'll be there if somebody comes in, if we're not all here, or we have some other group of P&Z that makes a mistake. Not that they're going, I expect that. I just think that there's a few of these things. It's just like on the dry cleaning. It's only for pickup for a reason. You wouldn't want them to be dry cleaning in that area with all of those chemicals getting into the soil and into the water. And that's my only concern, is getting some of these chemicals that are contaminants, and they will be contaminants if just a small amount of motor oil gets into the river. It's a big cleanup.
So you're only concerned with the area down in the valley? Is that the area that you're only concerned with?
I'm
just trying to make sure I understand.
Not Valley Road, but the valley.
Down in the valley,
Yes,
right?
in
Yes.
the valley. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, it seems to me, and I appreciate everything that you've said. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I think at some point we have to let the city kind of guide us in those things. And we have something that's zoned industrial. That's the only area we have industrial, correct? And so I think that there's some things that we can't hamstring them on. I think that we have to trust that they and the planning and zoning people will do well. the reason I don't disagree with you is because, I'd like to say no data centers down there, but you can't say that. So I just think that that might be the only place in the city that any of that stuff can go.
Well, again, remember, these are downtown district uses being transferred from town center. So conceivably in town center where we have greater population densities, we allow some of these uses. We have two filling stations, so to speak,
Right?
et cetera. But
Right.
everyone here is on potable water from Missouri American Water Company. And so the protection is, obviously, we don't want to disregard the aquifer. The aquifer spreads a great distance from, it knows no
Right.
land use boundaries or municipal boundaries. But again, I just think the process that's in place with our Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council will capture many of they'll see a red herring in the bunch, so to speak.
I would agree with that. And we have an airport down there already and gas stations down there already and warehouse down there in Chesterfield, right? Not on our property. So the hope is that we,
Louis?
Yeah, just west of that, isn't Golden Triangle Concrete already over there and Dowco, and there's a bunch of industrial
Yes.
uses now that are probably contributing environmental issues, so are they grandfathered? I mean, you can't say yes to them and no to the next one.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that they were grandfathered in and they do cause issues.
Well, first and foremost, they weren't grandfathered in. They're permitted by the underlying zoning, which is the M3 industrial district, and were vetted through St. Louis County's planning process and county council. So yes, there are some uses down there that I look at and think, wow. And the batch plan is one of them, but the batch plan is authorized under the zoning and there's an approved site plan. And so they do the best they can, I hope, to manage their processes. But certainly, I think from the list of downtown district uses, we're actually de-intensifying it to a certain degree, I think. So thank you.
So we have a motion to accept with a second. We have a motion to amend. We don't have a second yet. We have a second to the amendment.
I did not make a motion to amend. I was just making a comment.
Okay,
And if that's the consensus, I just want to go on record that
sure.
in the video that, like Mr. Bunch was saying, it's on record that could.
Understood.
And we'll make sure it's in the minutes as well for the benefit of all of you.
All in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All approved.
Aye.
That's a delay. I think that was an affirmative.
Okay. Right, motion passed. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'll jump into the new site.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair and members of the Citizen Oversight Group, as you know, we received an application for consideration from Pasiglia Nursery right after the deadline for submittals. The department brought it forward at the last meeting, noting that the day or two in terms of tardiness would have a 10-year impact in many ways. And so the group agreed to allow it to be added to the list of the 4 properties. And tonight, the intent is to present the proposal to you all for consideration. As we did in the other 4 instances, the department will give a brief overview. Mr. Pasiglia are here, Pete and Chris. I've advised them they have up to 12 minutes to present their proposal or their request. And then, as we've done in the past, there'll be questions and comments. And then if there is an inclination, motion second can be made and a vote. So the site, as Mr. Newberry has placed on your monitors and behind you on the wall, is Pisiglia's Nursery. It's the compilation of 3 properties to form the tract of land. It is located on the west side of State Route 109 at the intersection of Clayton Road. And as you can see, is adjoined by St. Alban Road Catholic Church, Lafayette High School, a large lot, single family subdivision to the south, And then across the street is a 10-acre tract of land that's vacant but farmed. And then to the north is Babbler Elementary School. The site itself has been underutilization since the around 1990 or so, for a plant nursery with greenhouses and sales room. I like to think the business has been very successful as it enters what I believe now is almost 30 years of operation at that location. Over that 30 years of operation, though, obviously things have changed. If you look at the report from St. Louis County that granted the conditional use permit, it does not show Lafayette High School. It shows a future Clayton Road extension to Route 109. And for the most part, there is no residential development in its near vicinity. The three properties, again, have active utilization at this time. And from the perspective of the department, a lot has changed in its vicinity. The department notes that because, again, as development has occurred, Route 109 south of the subject property is now a 4-lane arterial and has a number of roundabouts to the south and a traffic signal at the intersection at its frontage. Traffic volumes generally are medium to high, particularly during peak hours or school hours when students are arriving or departing. Tonight, the Pisiglias have submitted a letter. That letter is dated April 3rd and part of your packet. Also, as mentioned, there is the conditional use permit that was granted by St. Louis County in 1988 for the activity. And the most recent site development plan is included in the packet of information for your reference purposes. The department does note as part of its summary that obviously this business has a commercial component to it. It has a sales room, conducts retail sales. It has outdoor storage of materials and saleable products, and for all intents and purposes, acts as a commercial use. But it's zoned NU non-urban resident district and designated under our master plan as non-urban residential area. Again, not a non-conformity, but an allowance under a conditional use permit. The department looks from the perspective at it and thinks maybe some additional commercial could be accommodated, a different type of use. However, across the street is a 10-acre vacant parcel of ground that's used for farming purposes. But certainly any decision relative to the Pisiglia nursery property will have ramifications across Route 109. And so tonight, as the department summarizes in the information, it is wanting direction in terms of what the group would like to do. And with that, the department will conclude. And if there are any questions relative to the information that's been provided by the department, I'd be glad to answer them at this time.
Can you elaborate on what you just really said about the adjacent property across one? What does that mean?
Well, from the department's perspective, it is not recommending that any change be made to the Pisiglia property until a discussion's held by the group, because what happens on Pisiglia's property obviously will have ramifications across the street. So I can't see the group being able to separate the two. There are distinguishing circumstances. The 10-acre property on the east side of Route 109 is vacant. It doesn't have an activity. It doesn't have a commercial component, so to speak. So there is a difference. But if we expand what's there in terms of Mr. Pisiglia's business, then I think it's very difficult to tell the property owner across the street, you can build 3 3-acre lots.
So my first question is, what exactly does Pasiglia want us to do? So can
Yeah.
we hear from them?
In a few minutes, I think they'll be able to, if there's any questions about anything that we've provided.
Well, I just, my question is, I don't really quite understand what what they are looking for because it's surrounded by schools and homes. So I just don't understand what change they want. And so I'll defer my questions until I hear from them. Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah,
Is your microphone on?
I'm sorry, that 10-acre parcel, do we know anything about the ownership? I mean, it's right between Lafayette and the other school. And right now it's just a black hole to all of us. You're right about you can't tell them just to build three homes on 3 acres. It's not set up for that because there's a lot of high density, homes already on there. Do we know anything about it? Or are we just supposed to take our crystal ball and say, well, we should change the zoning of that? I mean, what are we looking for in terms of that parcel, even before we get to the Pasiglia folks?
So in terms of ownership, it's owned by the Bertlow family.
But
The Bertlow family. And the Bertlows own much of the agricultural property at Valley Road and Strecker Road. So farmers there, farmer here. They actually grow crops here. Has there been interest in a commercial type activity on the 10 acres? Yes. At least on a couple of occasions. Convenience stores with gas pumps and car washes have asked if that would be an allowable use or a use that the city would consider favorably. And the department has advised them the master plan recommends against that. It is a difficult property. It's an orphan in many ways because around it, as you've said, developments occurred under St. Louis County and Lafayette High School's been developed. Babler Elementary has been developed over the years and Dartmouth developed as well.
yeah, this is tough. I mean, because we can't tell people not to, not that they can't achieve the highest best use of their property in the future. It has to remain farming. That's no good. And 3-acre homes, they don't belong there. So I think we need a strategy.
Can I just make a comment? I lived in that neighborhood that backs to that lot. And I don't think that anybody in that neighborhood had any idea that that lot was going to be under discussion for tonight. And I don't think that we should change anything for that lot because all of those people live there. It's a unique piece of land. It's got valleys and I just don't think that we should consider changing anything with that lot right now.
I wouldn't suggest that, but what I was suggesting is that we, as a group, need to consider it. And if we need to have a public hearing or anything like that, we should probably try to nail that down. And maybe we sort of do it in tandem with the Pasiglia proposal, such as it is, because we can't make a decision on one without the other. That's my personal opinion.
And again, the department is not trying to confuse the issue, but I think it would be an error on the department's part to say act on Pasiglia. And if the group were to add a list of commercial uses and not know that there's a potential ramification across the street, that's all I'm saying. You can make a standalone decision based upon the letter and application before you from the Pasiglias, but know that someone is going to look at that and say, okay, now how about us?
I understand. So I think that we can't make any decisions until we know what Pasiglia.
Certainly.
What about changing or making a recommendation for that piece of property to suburban?
Well, that's an option. If Mr. Newberry would bring up the land use map. And the you'll give us a second, Mr. Chair, we'll have it up there shortly.
Hey, Dan, you didn't.
If you could zoom in a little for me, sure, appreciate it. So, as you can see, Lafayette High School and the property across the street, the 10 acres we've been discussing, are suburban. So I'm incorrect in my assessment. I apologize. That could accommodate potentially up to 8 or 9 home sites.
So I'm
So-
just thinking about giving them a little bit of recourse. Still get basically what they want. Make a possible recommendation. To Vicky's point, those people may
We
care.
don't know what they want yet. Nobody has said what they wanted.
It's coming. It's coming.
We shouldn't have a discussion on what ifs
Yeah.
here from the, let's further.
Fair enough.
I'll yield the podium, gentlemen and
Fair
ladies.
Well, my name is Chris Basiglia and been a nurseryman, landscaper out in Wildwood for 35 years. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't think we had a unique piece of property. You know, you have Clayton Road that's dedicated, that runs straight through my property, right? And cuts it in half and then stops. I feel that there's more uses than just a nursery and garden center. However, you know, one thought that I had was, well, it could be an event center tied in with a garden center with a high-end landscape around it. But I don't think that would consume the whole property, but that would be, I think, a good different mix and maybe something that the city would appreciate or but I feel that maybe there's some if it's not, you know, not industrial, but additional uses could be for, you know, maybe the school, maybe there's a small light retail. And I feel that, you know, I don't, you know, if it's just building homes there, if it's not a nursery, you know, you're not going to, I don't think, you know, 3 homes are going to be, you know, fit in that property, you know? So I feel that there's just additional uses that, you know, I see there, you know, and maybe it's something that the city, you know, can help me with, you know, develop, you know, because it is a unique piece of land. You know, again, if it was a couple blocks down and it wasn't at an intersection with a, you know, state highway that runs through my property, I wouldn't be here. But we just feel that there's additional uses for my land than just a, you know, nursery and garden center, you know. And I feel that there's, you know, with the amount of traffic that is at that intersection and the amount of frontage that I have along the road there, you know, there's just a there's so much visibility there along with the road frontage that I have. And again, with the high school right next door, the church next door, you know, I just feel like there's many other uses than just the garden center. However, I know I don't see a gas station there. We've had gas stations, inquire, we've had fast food joints. Of course, all inquire with our property, and we understand that that's never gonna, you know, be there, you know, designation there. But we're just looking for, you know, additional designation than what we have at our current designation now. So
Okay.
Let's ask a question. So I think everyone asked, what's your ask?
well,
So
my
do
ask
you want a
is,
new zone, As the master plan, is that where we're at here?
Well, I mean, believe me, not you obviously know that I'm in my busiest season, so yeah, I've, it's been a question that it's been burning with me for the last week. What is my ask? And, yes, I mean, do I see, uh, you know, a, my, our garden center in a different light, or if it's tied into, an event center that maybe has a small cafe attached to it? Is it, uh, some additional greenhouses, additional parking? That would be one, aspect that we could maybe see in our property. But, I'm approaching 60 years old. I don't know if that, that's a large investment, but it's just something that that could be uh, uh, something that would work there. And I also feel that, maybe if there's, something that maybe an office building that would work there for, maybe the school, or, light and, uh, yeah. So my ask is, just additional usages, what the city would allow us.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just give
Yeah.
you an example from the planning and zoning, just to give you.
Yes.
There was some other nursery out by St. Albans, and they wanted to partner up with Monsanto.
Yes.
And they decided that, and everyone was worried about chemicals and all this other stuff that's going on, and it did not get approved. Now, that conditional use permit allowed them to be a nursery in a non-urban,
Right.
if I got that right.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to do something, I think it would go through the planning and zoning. And you would say, hey, I would like to add to a conditional use this other property and would like to do this, whether you partnered with the school and they jointly did it with you, or the
Right.
city for something.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
from the perspective, does the zone need to be changed, or just leave it alone? And then that's something between you and the planning and zoning and the city. I feel like I'm educating here, and just to kind of help.
Yeah.
I see what you're wanting to do, and that's fine. But
Right. Yeah.
why change the non-urban residential for this?
Right.
If that's if you would like it changed, that draft, or
Yes, I would like a change in the,
to commercial
um,
town center, it would be town center. Okay.
yes,
So,
yes,
and that's your ask. for
That's
town
my
center
ask.
Designation. Okay.
yes.
Louis,
But how big of a parcel? How big is that?
It's
That-
it's 8.5 acres.
8.5
and
acres.
water, something.
So are you looking, when you say for uses, are you looking at doing something passive income wise, where you want to have the ability, as you said, to not, it's not going to be a Pasiglia family. It's not going to be a second revenue stream, but you want the ability to be able to parcel it off and sell 2 acres so that somebody can put a small office building? Or is this more, is that what you're trying?
Well, I don't know if, that could, if it's a nursery or garden center that's, again, when I say the word event center, a place where, maybe you have the green goods there tied in with, a well landscaped property with, again, larger greenhouses. That's one take. And then, but I feel that
I got
I would need, in order for the property to be, valued enough, I think I would need additional usage, other than just that,
Teresa.
Yeah, from the master plan perspective, looking at this, there was more things I would ask.
Sure.
And one of my problems is urban sprawl. So we have the town center, and that is 2% of our whole 68 square miles, where we want to keep everything and keep all of these different things that you talked about, keep it in one place, retail, businesses. And so putting something there, in my mind, I'm thinking, is that going to stretch it out? So somebody else is going to want to put something else, then another person want to put something else. So now we've got town center all the way out there. Another question I have, and I have sent a note to Mr. Brown, asking him about the capability and the, uh, the, the capacity and the capability of that intersection. If there was something else there to bring people in, where are we on our capability of that intersection? And he's supposed to be getting me the intersection safety evaluation calculation to see, because it is so close to two schools and a church, which causes it to the scoring to be a little different than if it's just a regular intersection.
Right.
So those things would concern me before I would say anything about changing that designation. The area across the street, that 10-acre plot also worries me that something else is going to want to go in there. So that's in my head, is what is this going to start? Is this going to start like a snowball of other people wanting to extend our town center, which is not something that really our residents are mostly.
I guess my answer to that is, again, I wouldn't be here because of the intersection and where I am. If I was a block down and I wasn't at that intersection, I wouldn't waste the committee's time. But I feel that there's just, it's such a visible piece of property, and it has a light and Clayton Road through my property. Makes it, I think it makes it just a unique piece of property.
Jim,
Well, I mean, as if it's not a nursery, I'm not going to be in the nursery business for the next 30 years, hopefully I'm here for another 10, and God willing. But I think it's, in order from a financial standpoint, from our point, is, an additional designation and additional things that I could put there would be advantageous for us. But again,
the intersection help or hindrance?
I think it's a help, yes, definitely. Yes.
That was put there by St. Louis County. Future plans of like continue. Obviously, that's not in that road cut
Blocked off. Well,
I mean, at some point in time in its development, you're not gonna hope on Clayton Road running through the property.
right.
And since it's
Would
useless, it's not
Right.
gonna,
right.
what would it take to just remove that portion of Clayton Road and just have Clayton in?
Mhm. Yeah. And that could be, looked into, and, that's,
Vicky,
No, I was gonna say, as far as the property use, I think that right, argument, that planning zoning time comes, because if you want to put instead of you sit trying to figure out what it means. That's their guy.
well, right. Yeah, no, I understand that. But
Probably worth more with.
Yeah. yes.
Vicky.
So this is my opinion. I mean, this is where I sit with it. You have residences to one side of you. You have 3 schools surrounding you. You have the empty lot across the way. You have a church. And you're at the intersection of Clayton and 109, which is quite honestly a nightmare when the school's coming and going. But you have a business right now that the lights are off at night. so it doesn't impact those residences, the people that are there. And while I absolutely respect your ask, I don't know that I personally would vote for you to have a commercial aspect to it, other than, I mean, if it was so very narrowly defined, just for that reason, because it's surrounded by children in residences. And so if we were going to consider anything, any kind of a zoning change to that, it would have to be the narrowest in my mind, unless we continued on with the CUP. I would not be in favor of changing it just for the reasons that I stated.
Rob.
Yeah, this will be quick. First, a question. This is, Joe, this looks like it's 3/4 of a mile, every bit of 3/4 of a mile from the, from town center proper. Do we have any other non-contiguous parts of our town center zoning?
No, sir.
Okay, so this would be a new thing if we were to decide it was town center. Okay, can we, is it appropriate for us to ask you to make a recommendation or a suggestion? Because you're right, I think it's incumbent on this commission or this group to consider that other parcel in in this area. I mean, otherwise we're kicking it down the road. And maybe it's okay to just let it go before Planning and Zoning Commission. They do a fine job. Would that be your suggestion, or do you have other things that we haven't heard you say?
Well, to discuss the Planning and Zoning Commission, what would happen if no change is recommended by the group relative to its conceptual land use category, and a developer wanted to come in and propose something of a more commercial nature?
On either property?
Yes,
Okay.
it would be a tandem request in that they'd have to ask for a master plan change. Traditionally, the Planning and Zoning Commission says that's only done every 10 years.
Okay.
And so from that perspective, the only uses are those uses that could be considered permitted or conditional in the NU, non-urban resident district zoning category, not land use category, zoning. And so that's why the discussion of land use is so imperative as part of the 10-year update. The policy has been, we don't change during that 10-year, that intervening 10 years.
That's what you would that's what you would suggest, is that we don't change it?
Well, it's a difficult one because, as I say, it walks like commercial, it talks like commercial, and from my perspective is commercial. Is it its highest and best use under the non-urban resident district? The only thing I could think that is also a conditional use is a childcare center. That might be even a higher and better use. I don't know.
10-acre childcare center is pretty extreme.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, sorry, I apologize if I'm on delay. My internet here is not the best. I hear everybody's concerns, and I also I empathize with Mr. Pastiglia. I would not want to hand tie any business owner's ability to, adapt their business to create passive income or to just change with the times. But I do, as a resident myself, feel that I would be much more likely to support something if he were to say exactly what he wanted to do. When I hear an event space, yes, he's got a lot of plants on the property. And as a millennial myself, I feel like that's a real big thing right now. If you want to create a little venue on your property utilizing what you have for bridal showers or, graduation parties or something like that, that's not going to really spill outside of your current business hours. I feel like that is something most people in this room, I would hope, would consider much more strongly than throwing out the idea of potentially parceling it off to we don't even know what. Is that, it just sounded like you have a very broad idea. Do you have anything in specific at this time, or is that something you'd be able to come up with for the group?
Well, I think it's, I guess I'm looking for, maybe some suggestions that that the group would consider, knowing that, it's not going to be, C8 commercial or, a gas station or, I understand that that's, going to be a far reach. But maybe it's something that, again, it has, that's something that's community driven, but has a higher use and maybe an additional revenue stream other than just the nursery business, something that would maybe complement it or and that's where, the event space, idea kind of came to mind and then but maybe not being able to fill up the whole eight acres with that particular, you know, vision, then maybe it's, something that, again, it's, maybe it's an office building of some sort with light commercial, that's, that's maybe low impact,
Scott?
So last thing I'll say is that I always like things where there's balance. So
Yeah.
something that, so the way it works in P and Z, you would come up and
Right.
we would see it. Joe would work with
Yes.
you and Travis, and they would say, hey, we'd like to change the zone.
Right.
And then everyone gets notice, all the neighbors, the school and everyone else gets notice,
Yes.
and then they have their say as well. And so the community, if we did it here, my concern was we would be skipping that step of the citizens that live in the area of, oh, I'm okay. Now, I assume with what you're describing, the things you would do, be very low impact,
Right.
probably might not be a problem in it. And maybe it's just an extension of a CUP
Right.
for the next person that comes along.
Yes.
As well.
Right.
I don't know that master plan is the place to do this at. I think this is a P and Z, but Joe, you're the expert. I was just,
Yeah.
my 2 cents. That's all I
Yeah.
got.
And again, I would not be here if it wasn't for what I think is a unique piece of property, though. That's why I'm here.
Cindy?
Thank you. I will say I agree. I think it is a unique place. And I think it could get a lot of utility no matter which direction we would go. I kind of had a question for Joe. So the property where it's Parkside Grill, it's Strecker and Clayton, how is that handled? Because that's part of suburban residential, but it has the daycare and it has the really popular restaurant as well.
So just up there, the actual commercial zoning of the Four Corners occurred by St. Louis County. And when the city incorporated, it didn't want that commercial pattern on the Four Corners to expand. So it made it suburban. But in the suburban definition, in the master plan, we accommodated the lots that had existing commercial and gave them what I would call a caveat.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I was thinking, the same way, we could utilize a CUP or something, but thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So just for clarification, would we be voting to allow the consideration, not necessarily stipulate what that would be? Is that how I understand it?
Well, I think you could do either. The department would probably not recommend picking a single use and saying this is what we think it should be. The likelihood of that being successful probably would be slim. I think from the perspective of the department, we would never recommend that the land use designation be changed to town center. Creating an island, or as was described, the sprawl. The best I could offer to the group is that we retain the non-urban residential area designation, but we look at what would be reasonable uses here, and if it were to occur on the adjoining or the abutting or adjacent 10 acres, would that be reasonable there as well?
Mr. Pasiglia, I would love for you to have freedom to do what you want with your property, just so you know. But I also understand that all the ramifications that come with that, we're probably not. Would love that for you.
Deborah?
Okay.
I was just gonna say, it kind of is concerning to change a zoning when you don't know specifically what you have in mind to do as far as, like you said, maybe an office building. Well,
Well,
I personally, I cannot see an office building there. We have
well,
the town center for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But does it mean that you need to change zoning if maybe you wanted to open a little cafe as part of your
Yeah.
business? Would that require you to change your zoning? Like if he said, oh, I want to have a little cafe off to the side or something, would you have to change the zoning for that?
Again, Ms. Coleman, remember, the non-urban residential area land use category says the only zoning district that can be considered and the uses associated with it is the non-urban resident district. So commercial activities in the residential district are few and far between. The Pasiglias have one now, the sales room in conjunction with the plant nursery. And as I mentioned, there's a child care center allowance and a couple of others, but nothing to the scale that obviously would probably satisfy the Pasiglias.
I see.
So,
Okay, well, it just seems to me, to change zoning when we don't really know specifically what for. I mean,
right. So when I say office building, maybe it's something institutional, that ties in with the school, the church, or, so.
I think there like needs to be more specific.
Well, again, since there's a 10-year span between, the planning or I feel that I needed to be here, and have at least an opportunity to speak and to recognize how unique this piece of property is, or otherwise I would not be here. I wouldn't waste your time. So that's.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
To kind of summarize, I see two things. Sooner or later, some point in time, you may think about retiring, you may think about selling the property. If you decide to sell the property, a change in zoning would be significant as far as your
Yes.
portfolio.
Yes.
Everybody understands that.
Yeah.
It's also the most hardest things to accomplish.
Yes.
Second alternative is considering other people's input, maybe like businesses. And I don't know what a like business is, but
Right.
you have a little retail shop in your
Right.
landscape business.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you say, hey, I want to add 1,000 square foot lawnmower shop next to that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a like business.
Yes.
Or if I want, maybe you want to start a tree trimming business, maybe
Right.
that lines up with
Yeah.
your business.
Mhm.
Those kind of things presented would get a lot more traction than.
And I understand. I understand. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. But I feel, that's where I thought, well, if again, the event space would be something I think that would be unique, and it would, have a lot of, tie in with what we do with the landscaping business. And, I could, so I feel that would be a nice reach. But I also thought about, rental, like a rental business of some sort, equipment or stuff like that. So.
Yeah, there's things that I don't know about this project. Like some of the people have already mentioned, we don't know what the allowable uses would be if we kept it at the non-urban plus uses. And so that would make it really hard to vote on, as well as where it's at, so close to the schools. I don't know how close you can be to a school and serve alcohol, have alcohol like at an event center or something. How close you could be to those schools if it's a certain number of feet, or if you're far enough away. I don't know, but that would be something that we need to find out before we made a designation of or any change to. There's just a lot of unknowns at this point, and like the chair was saying, we don't know how long you will have this. So if we gave you know, if it was changed to a town center, we wouldn't know what the next person would just come in and do. We would have to do this, and I agree with Mr. Rambo or Dr. Rambo that we have to think about that other property, the other properties that are around there, large open places or places that we've had other people inquire about for to make this fair to everyone.
I remember years ago, Gilbert's used to have seminars where they would teach people how to garden and such. That would possibly be an associated use to your nursery
Yes, it
business.
would.
And I'm assuming you're going to keep the main focus of that property with the nursery.
Yes. Yes and no. I mean, that could be the case, but as Dan said, you know, as I approach retirement age, yes, you look and a nurseryman works all his life and then he, you know, hopes to someday sell his business and his property for the highest use and the most valuable value. And under its current designation, it's, you know, again, you know, we've built a big business, a long-standing business. And yes, I'd like to see that, you know, continue, with some variations, you know, to that property's use category. That's we're looking for additional use. And it's, you know, and I don't want to be vague in what I'm asking for. It's just, again, with the town center review, you know, every 10 years, you know, I feel like I had to come up and speak, you know, now to at least get in front of you and hopefully you'd you know, give me some advice, I guess.
So
Take it from here.
I think if we look at it a little different way, we've had other builders, whatever, come to us at the 10-year plan mark. Say you brought us somebody that said,
Yeah.
we want to buy your property. They come here and they give us a pitch. We want to buy Pasiglia's property and we want to put in an office building.
Right.
And this is what it's going to look like. And then we would have all the discussions about, is that really the place for an office building?
Yeah.
The answer would probably be no.
Right.
But 9 out of 10 things that anybody that wanted to buy your property and do other than residential would be a pretty steep hill to climb. And I think that's kind of where everybody's coming from.
Right. Well, yeah, as I stand here before you, I understand that, you know, you know, yeah, again, with the unique, you know, property where it sits, you know, and the traffic light that I have and the corner and the city or the like the highway that or Clayton Road that's designated to go or that's through my property. Yes, I can, you know, go through the channels to try and retrieve that property back, but just makes it yeah, just looking for some advice from the city.
What does everybody think about? We can take a vote on this tonight. Probably know which way we go.
Yeah.
Or you can come back in a week and say, this is the specific use that I want to do on this property, and we can vote on that.
No, we can.
Can I make a motion?
I have
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Unich would like to, first of all, can I say one thing to you? I don't think that this was a waste of time for you to come here, and I'm grateful that you came. I'm just so that you know.
May I ask for just one more question? I'm sorry.
Okay, just to summarize real quick, you're just looking for the opening to say, I don't know what I want to do. I just want it to be something that you will consider at a future use, right? That you're just wanting that at this point. We don't have to say this is what your business is going to be and this is exactly you know, what comes with that. So that's why I'm asking, is it just that we say, yes, we will consider it? Am I missing something here?
Can I ask a question? Am I a delay? I don't know.
I agree with you, should be in planning and zoning.
Well, or it's, I guess, something other than a, 3 acre designation for a developer. If it's, it's a, uh, townhomes or, condominium or not condominiums, but, detached homes or, something where we, maybe a developer would want, or I have, single family homes, would be, maybe not the best use for it, I think, unless it was, again, it's just because there's, it's at that intersection. It's such a busy intersection. I just see, you know, something that's commercialized that's tasteful to the city's liking. And I'm sorry I don't have the plan, fully thought out, but uh, again, it's, you know, that's why I'm here, the, what possibilities there could be.
Director Benich, I have a question. Maybe I misunderstood. So this is not a zoning issue. This is a land use issue. So it wouldn't be something that he could go to planning and zoning and get taken care of. Am I right about that?
Certainly, if the group were to say, keep the current land use designation unchanged, it doesn't preclude a developer to come to the Planning and Zoning Commission and say, I want to change the master plan. What I've said is, the commission and city council has said we don't typically change the land use categories midstream. We do it on that 10-year cycle. And that's been pretty much the case for the last 30 years. So I appreciate Mr. Jackson saying this is something the commission can handle, but the commission has said, no, it's something that the update of the master plan should have addressed. And that's been the practice. Saying that, everybody has a right to come to get their day in court, so to speak.
So, black and white, we're at a point where a presentation is made tonight to change the land use category, and we need to vote on whether or not we agree to do that.
Yeah.
That's town center. Late town center.
Change it, period. Yeah.
Just change it, period.
So to the group, I would offer this. There seems to be a reluctance, particularly on the part of the department, to create an island of town center not contiguous to its current boundary. I think that has ramifications that you all don't realize. That would be Highway T and Route 100. That'd be Fox Creek Road and Route 100. That'd be every major intersection throughout town. That's not going to work. Don't do it. I'm just telling you. You have the right to do it as a recommendation, but I will tell you it's a problem. I've done you a disservice because I've categorized everything as permitted or conditional uses. how about you give Robin, Travis, Melanie, and I an opportunity to look at something called accessory, meaning the non-urban residential area would stay in place. The primary use would be the plant nursery. What would be appropriate and compatible with a plant nursery? Maybe it is lawn maintenance, tree service. Maybe it is an event center that takes advantage of the trees, the shrubs, the bushes, all the things that make an area, the garden area, attractive during the year. So I guess what I'm saying is, I wouldn't necessarily encourage you to vote on what you've heard tonight, maybe a little more opportunity for the department to offer you an option for consideration that may be a little fairer to the property owner and the overall community. Remember, accessory uses, the dog wags the tail. So the dog is the plant nursery, greenhouses, sales room. The tail is what's accessory to that and what works with that. And that would be my offer to the group.
So devil's advocate, say we approved a lawnmower shop. Could the guy on the opposite corner put in a lawnmower shop?
Remember, it's still non-urban residential area, and it has to be accessory or what I would consider compatible with a plant nursery, neither of which exist there.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I would move to postpone our vote until we get that information that Mr. Bonich had just mentioned.
Rob,
I'll second her motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you. We'll be back at our next meeting with hopefully something that you all can kind of more put your teeth in. So thank you.
Yeah, and gentlemen, we did not, it's not our intent to drag you through the, through the mud. It's just a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns. And as things materialize, the decisions get a lot easier.
Getting older.
Yes, sir.
Watch my crown leaving that place. 2010, they used one of the areas we're gonna take it over.
Have enough conversation.
I got one left.
Understood.
And, get out of there too. It's hard to.
Understood.
Man. It's really good when you go to see Mother's Day weekend, park not full. It's utter,
It's tough.
Stop.
Thank you.
Trying to get him out of there and. I'd like to call a farm. But.
We appreciate your input.
Company, that part. Thank you all for having me. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chair will return with hopefully an idea or two so you can consider such and respond to the Pasiglia's request. Mr. Chair, with your permission, we can talk about the transportation element next if you'd like.
Please.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I do want to recognize Mr. Brown, our Director of Public Works, is here tonight. Excuse me. He is also our city engineer and our traffic expert. As you know, earlier this year, we did go through the transportation element and talk about the goals, objectives, and policies. A component of that transportation element is the classification of arterial roadways for the city of Wildwood. We also noted that the designation of arterial roadway has some ramifications relative to priority funding for improvements, maintenance, ice and snow removal, and even in our zoning ordinance, certain regulations favor more signs along arterial roadways, larger signs along arterial roadways than non-arterial roadways. So we had a great discussion about the list of existing arterial roadways divided into two categories, east, west, north, south. Mr. Brown was kind enough to stand up at the podium and respond to your questions, comments. And for the most part, I'd like to think The efforts of Mr. Brown and the Department of Planning have led to the information that is before you tonight being accurate and reflective of your comments. Saying that, I do want Mr. Brown to come forward if he'd like and mention anything that he has developed as part of this. We've also, and this is key for Mr. Brown, defined what an arterial roadway is. And that was a request of the group as well. So, Mr. Brown.
Joe, thank you very much. I don't, members, I don't know that I have any prepared or any additional comments for you tonight. I think Joe did a fine job in presenting or putting together the information that is in front of you tonight for the meeting. So if there's any particular questions I can help out with, I'd be glad to do that. Otherwise, I do believe that what Joe's put together is very good. Thank you.
Yes. Last time we had talked a little bit about east-west arterial roadways, and we had, if I remember right, we mentioned Babbler View Drive. And then I thought in reviewing this, how about Pond Grover Parkway as designating those two as major arterial east-west?
I do recall at least the discussion about Pond Grover Parkway potentially being added. That certainly could be considered. It is a short street. It does not continue through for any length. So from that perspective, it would be maybe less desirable as an arterial roadway, but it could be considered.
On my 5-minute dog walk this morning, I counted 30 cars going by on Babbler View Drive.
And Babbler View, I would venture to say it would be more of a local street or a collector rather than arterial, quite frankly. It's while it may carry a higher volume than many other residential streets, it still doesn't function more as an arterial roadway. It's more of a collector connecting through from 109 to West Glen Farms.
And Mr. Chair, if I could add, the Babbler View Drive from the perspective of the Department of Planning, and I think the Department of Public Works would concur, arterials typically don't have direct residential access. And in the case of Babbler View Drive, people have to back out onto it. That is not necessarily what you want to do. Basically, it designated as an arterial. It truly is a residential street at the very least. It may be a collector, but with its design, I would argue that it shouldn't be an arterial. And if we were supposed to add it and it didn't get there, my apologies.
Brown, I don't know if this can be added into this document or not, but is there any way we can designate the weight limits on some of these roads? Because it's not followed very well.
I would defer to Joe, but the weight limit restrictions are a function of, in large part, if there are restrictions relative to structures on the roadways that exist in place. So that's not something that would necessarily be, in my mind, purview of the master plan. It's more of a restriction based on what's already constructed in the field. So we may have an older structure that's not designed to accommodate trucks. Then we typically put a weight restriction in place on a route. We actually have some of those in residential streets as well, but.
And Ms. Clark, I would argue arterials are the streets you want the heavier vehicles on, not the local collectors, residential streets. So placing weight limits on arterials would, for all intents and purposes, in my mind, create an untenable situation where we're saying these are the roads that can accommodate more traffic because they are designed to accommodate such, but we're saying you can't have larger vehicles on it because of weight limits. So I see them as kind of counter. My apologies.
Suppose I'm thinking specifics in my head of a Welltorse Creek Road that, there are weight limits on Welltorse Creek Road that are not followed very well. So I just thought maybe if there was a note on the ones that have those weight limits in your list. I don't know, maybe it can't be in this list, but just trying to think of a way to point that out.
I appreciate that, but I don't think the truck drivers are probably following the master plan when they're driving down the road. The signs are probably your best bet. We do have the signage out there. Most of the regular truck drivers, the responsible ones, are aware of those weight restrictions. Obviously can't guarantee what all of them will do. And it is difficult to enforce those type of restrictions, quite frankly.
Joe, are you looking for approval of this list?
Mr. Chair. Sorry, Mr. Chair, yes, obviously there's been a few questions relating to Babbler View Drive, Pine Grover Parkway. Certainly we can consider those, but tonight we are presenting to you what we believe is the direction received from the group relative to the arterial system. And we would also ask for an approval of the definition of an arterial roadway.
Any motions to Joe's effect?
Make that a motion.
Teresa? All in favor? All
Aye.
opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Mr. Brown, thank you.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, we can go to the next item on the agenda, which is the first two of the 6 narratives for each of the elements. And before beginning the presentation, I do want to acknowledge the assistance from Ms. Clark, who provided input into the narratives that will be presented to you tonight and at a future meeting. So thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the group, the initial master plan that was adopted in 1996 contained a narrative or preface relative to each of the elements. The content of those narratives were specific to the individual elements and spoke to, in many regards, why the goals, objectives, and policies were part of that element, meaning in the case of the environmental element, the disregard by St. Louis County for the characteristics of the land causing problems in each of the watersheds where overdevelopment was occurring, specifically Cox Creek, etc. So in the information provided to you, there are 3 columns. The first column is the recommended revision. The second column is the existing version from 2016. And then the third column is the submittal from one of our group members, Ms. Clark, and the department used that extensively in its revision to the original. So tonight, I just want to kind of go through the key points of it very briefly. So in terms of the revised description, the narrative, the department did first and foremost, as each of them have for the last 30 years, reference the plan of intent. The plan of intent was developed by the incorporators as a component and requirement of the St. Louis County Boundary Commission. That was for the purposes of the discussion regarding the incorporation, where everybody got their information. Here are our plans. Here is what we plan to do. Here is our revenue projections, et cetera, et cetera. So the plan of intent is referenced. As part of the environmental element, the early incorporators, as part of the plan of intent, and over the last 30 years, I've always said the environment is a key element that makes Wildwood unique and why Wildwood is here. And so it goes into the description of the ecology, the things that are so sensitive that past development practices, and in some regards, current development practices, had to be abandoned or revised respectfully. So again, the ecology, it speaks to long, steep hillsides, narrow ridge tops, dissected drainage patterns, clay and cherty soils, young to mature woodlands, all forming what we come to call wildwood and love because of it. Then it goes on to basically say that we can't sit on our laurels. We have to be vigilant. We have to always kind of cast an eye toward what's being developed, what's being proposed, and our regulations keeping pace with the changes we're seeing or the consumer preferences over what had been the first 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. It also then goes into detail about the need for renewed efforts, particularly as it relates to our watersheds. And as you know, the initial efforts over the first 10 years focused a great deal on our watersheds and ensuring that we understood those that were healthy and those that were stressed. We spent a great deal of time addressing particular problem areas, many of those being bridge crossings and the triple meander in Cox Creek. What we found, though, starting in roughly around 2020, is that the watersheds, despite our best efforts, were still experiencing stress and in some instances increased stress due to a number of factors. And so Watershed Erosion Task Force was formed, and ultimately it came up with 3 recommended steps: create a stormwater management master plan to retrofit older detention retention basins and to continue to repair critical locations threatening first public infrastructure and properties and then private properties. Finally, it goes into the steps that have been made to kind of keep us at pace with our changing world and environment. It talks about the land use categories and why they are there: the town center, the suburban, the non-urban, the industrial. And it goes a step further based upon the group's input about some of the threats that we're facing, not just stormwater, erosion, and runoff, but also light pollution, noise pollution, and those things that are threatening the peace and quiet of Wildwood. It ends up with basically a group statement, and that I like to think reflects what we talked about during the discussions of goals, objectives, and policies. And so that's the first narrative relative to the first element, environmental. I can go into the planning narrative, but we can stop here. And if there are any questions, suggestions, should we throw it all out and start over? Is there a better approach? The group has the discretion, and we as the Department of Planning are waiting for your direction. Yeah.
Just one note, can we put links or appendices in for all of the different documents that we talk about in that?
Yes, Melanie, Travis, Robin, and I, we think it's integral that we basically update the document, not only in terms of what we've been doing for the last 19 meetings, but also making it the 20th century document that we know it can be. That includes links and everything you just described. Because trying to put it all in the book is going to be a futile attempt, and the book will be too thick and people will look at it and wonder why we did it that way. So yes, definitely. The planning narrative, that was our second element that we discussed and went through the goals, objectives, and policies. What you'll see is some similarity in the first part of the narrative for the planning element. And the, again, comes from the plan of intent. 3 of the 5 objectives spoke to residential and commercial development consistent with long-range planning and prudent land utilization protection of the green belt, and preservation and conservation of the natural environment. The department then references the environmental element. These are things that you immediately identified in the goals, objectives, and policies and supported. And so again, they are the introduction to the planning element. The department also went ahead and retained in many, for the purposes of tonight's discussion, in a very much similar manner, what function Wildwood serves for the larger region. John Gunther many years ago described Wildwood as the lungs of the metropolitan area, meaning we have tree cover. Tree cover basically helps the environment, the air quality, the climate change, the heat. So the department, for the most part, thought that was worthy of retention. The next area is just the major initiatives that have been accomplished over the last 10 years. Ms. Clark's input was very much welcome here. She has much better memory than I. But as you can see, there's been a lot done in the last 10 years on the planning side of the ledger to basically do the things that we have identified both in the environmental element, the planning element, and the others. I think some of the things that are worth noting, and I won't go through the entire list of 19, but the fact that we partnered with the United States Geological Survey and did a 2-year study of the Cox Creek. You think, well, we know Cox Creek is stressed. We know there needs to be fixes. Why would you pick that one? That became the template because that is the most stressed, and we see that stress starting to occur or in progress in other watersheds. What were the recommendations to arrest it? And in this case, more storage and better designs for that storage. So that's what we're doing. We put it into our environmental element. I think it's also important to note that we basically kind of closed the loopholes in our tree preservation and restoration code. And that was at the urging of our city council and former mayor, James Boland. Now, not only do we look at grand trees, but we look at grand groves, those collection of trees, individually not the size that causes them to be considered grand, but collectively they create that grand grove and would be a loss if removed. We had a great discussion on solar panels and whether they should be front facing toward the street or not. You as a group of residents, many of you took a survey and said, we need solar panels. It's time, and how they face or whether they are visible from the street should not be an issue to preclude their application on anyone that would want them. So now we have a much more, let's say, user-friendly set of regulations for solar panels. We completed the Wildwood History book. And if you haven't had an opportunity to see that, it was a major endeavor for over 8 years of our Historic Preservation Commission. And Ms. Keefe was able to finally bring it home. So I extend my appreciation to her for that. We created a Development and Zoning Review Committee. So it is kind of a I would say, informal approach to land use discussions. The origin was a project on Ridge Road where the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, along with the developer, spent approximately 2 years trying to find the solution to the 80-acre development, the 80-acre site development. Ultimately, it didn't move forward, but the developer spent the better part of $250,000 to hear no. So the thought was, let's get them to the decision makers sooner in an informal setting and let them make their pitch. And then those decision makers, the mayor, the 2 ward representatives from where the property is situated, the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the city council liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Get that developer with them, let them hear it, and let them hear then, the developer, those first impressions. We've been praised by many a developer for that process. And again, from the department's perspective, initially, we thought we're going to basically balk at it because it's just another step in already a multiple step process. No, they see it as a positive. And so that's something we've introduced in the last 10 years. We began offering interpreted concerts for American Sign Language, something I don't know many other municipalities do at their public events. And I think most importantly, and shout out goes to Travis and a couple of others, we basically took the pandemic on and we continued to meet, and we did it through Zoom and other media approaches. And we didn't miss a beat. We kept operating as a government, and we continue to do that. I think we have probably one of the best transparency approaches of any government. So those are the things we did on the planning side over the last 10 years, I think are worth highlighting. Obviously, the Department of Public Works has continued to do a wonderful job of improving our roads, both from the standpoint of ongoing maintenance on an annual basis, and also addressing those problem areas that have been identified by our residents, particularly Route 100, Route 109, Wild Horse Creek Road, and State Route 109, and et cetera. So again, from a planning perspective, our Department of Public Works look at the problem areas, looks for funding through grant sources, and then ultimately makes them part of our 5-year capital improvement plan, and we get things done. So congratulations to them. Obviously, there are some clouds out there. We had over the last 10 years, 2010 to 2020, we had a decline in population. Not necessarily a good thing when you depend on population for your primary revenue source. We also saw, in some regards, changes in our revenue sources from outside sources, the Missouri State Legislature. And so those are the clouds out there that, from a planning perspective, our city council, mayor, and many of our appointed members on our boards and commissions look at every day and work to address. So before you is what is proposed revision to the planning narrative, and certainly welcome any comments, questions, changes, deletions, whatever the group feels is best. Thank you.
Kudos to you. Yeah, thank you.
So this is what we.
Teresa?
Director Finish, what, is there a reason that we don't include all of those initiatives that were on the previous one in addition to what we did in the last 10 years, the last 30 years?
That's a very good question, and I guess my answer hopefully will be worthy of the question. But as you know, we don't necessarily toss aside the 1996 master plan, the 2005 version, 2006 actually, or the 2016. Those accomplishments are part of that, and there's a record of them. I look at it and I start thinking, is it germane that we say in 1996 the city passed its first wild master plan? I don't know. So I'm more focused on the 10-year window that you've all been involved in and wanted you to understand what we've accomplished there. Certainly it'd be easy to add them. So if that's the desire of the group, consider it done.
Maybe just put in parentheses the last, from this date to this date, the previous.
Certainly
Like
can do
something
that
like
and be glad to.
Vicky, did you propose a motion?
I can propose a motion to accept what the city presented.
The department would appreciate that. Thank
That
you.
would be my motion.
Jim? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Joe, I think that's a great place to stop.
I have one more thing and it'll be very quick.
Okay.
I promise. So the last memorandum you received for tonight's meeting came to you late, the beginning of this week. We're still in the beginning of the week, but it was what I consider our proposed meeting schedule for the remainder of the process. In the memorandum, I do acknowledge that it has been something of an arduous process as we move from meeting 19 to meeting 20. And the department does apologize, particularly its director. There are a lot of reasons, part workload and part mismanagement on my part. But we are at a point where the department is proposing for you all at least 5 more meetings, which would take us through the end of July. So that's the goal. As you can see, on the 27th, we would like to meet. It's after Memorial Day weekend and hopefully before the summer vacation season starts, that we would take final action on all the land use components, presentation of the remaining narrative, and act upon them. June 9th, you would have the draft plan to the group for your first review and the draft of the survey we intend to send out to our residents to basically say, is the draft plan appropriate, not appropriate, what we missed, what we need to add, et cetera, et cetera. The next meeting on, on July 15th, we would have the survey results before you and discussion on them. At that meeting, you would tell us, yes, that comment or that set of comments needs to be incorporated into the plan. And the intent would be then have the open house on the draft plan with the additions from the survey. And then from the open house, incorporating the comments there for presentation of the public input from the open house and final action on the plan on July 28th. From there, it's out of your hands. It goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission and then City Council. We think by October, if all goes well, the updated master plan for 2026 will be concluded. I would ask you to consider the dates. If you can make those meetings, great. I would ask you to put them in your calendar. But I think this is the workable schedule because there are other meetings, there are other commitments for the building, and these are the open dates that work. Also, one last item, Mr. Chair. As I've told you in the past, each time we meet, we provide to our city council a summary, and that's what attachment A is. It's a summary of the elements and the things we've discussed and the things we've added and the important points, and then the land use up to the 4 sites that we acted upon tonight. So again, if you could put them on your calendar, great. If you can't make it, we understand, but we'd like to be done by the end of July. Thank you.
Next meeting date will be Tuesday, May 26th. Any outside comment? Okay. No. All right. Heather has requested a couple minutes to address the group, please.
Make it real quick. I have 2 properties here within our beautiful Wildwood listed for sale right now. And if you know anybody who's looking, would love for you to potentially mention one of these properties. One of them offers almost a ½ acre of land, and it is 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, has a large loft, and it is listed at $639,900. And my other property is in the beautiful Brightleaf subdivision, and it's at 2319 Red Glory. It's also 4 beds, 3.5 baths, and it is part of where they take care of the landscaping. So one house, you get a lot of land you get to take care of and you swim, and the other one, somebody takes care of the land for you. Both homes are beautiful. Again, if you know of anybody, because our market's a little tight right now with everything going on, so send them my way, please. And thank you for.
Yeah, thank you. Any additional comments before we close? Michael, you want to make a motion?
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Joe and staff.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.